Welcome! This is the Rustic Songbird podcast, and I'm your host, Lydia Walker. This show is for you if you're ready to learn more about the craft of songwriting and take your skills to the next level. Thanks so much for listening. Let's get started. Today on the show, I have my friend Cody Morehead coming in all the way from Michigan to talk to us today. I've had a lot of Nashville songwriters on the show, so we're expanding a little bit, branching out. But Cody is jack of all trades in a way. He is the next gen pastor at Heart of the Lakes Church in Michigan, and he's also the owner of PubZoo. Tell me again, is it Publications? PubZoo?
It's PubZoo Creative.
Creative. Yes, and also the creative director of Serious Writer. So you have a lot going on, and I'm excited to have you on the show today because I think you've got a lot of great insight to share with writers, just from your experience and from your pastoral heart. Hopefully we can share some encouragement for the people that are listening. So welcome to the show, Cody.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. So
yeah, it's awesome to have you here. I've got just a few questions for you and would love to hear more of your story. So let's get started with how you got your start in writing and why that's important to you.
So I got my start in writing because somebody who I know very closely was like, go to a writer's conference. And I'm like, I'm not even a writer. Like, I don't really, And he's like, yeah, just trust me, go there. Because I'm more of a speaker than a writer. And so I go all over the place and I do public speaking and I lead worship and I do all this crazy stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to this conference. Well, I left like, just got to do this. Like, it's just got to be part of who I am. So the writing world has kind of thrust itself upon me, and I don't really have a choice anymore. So that's kind of, I went to one writer's conference, and then I was like, I just got to do this. Like, God's given me words, and I got to share them. So.
Awesome. So it was involuntary, but you are able to use your gifts that you have from other circumstances in your life that kind of goes together. So, I mean, you're doing ministry, you're doing creative stuff. So it just makes sense that writing would be a part of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it was like, hey, I probably should do this now. Because why not? Just let's add one more thing, Like,
yeah. So. Well, you've got a lot of things going on, and one of those is being the creative director for Serious Writer. So I wanted you to share a little bit about the vision for that and how it came to be.
So Serious Writer so Bethany Jett and Kyle Young both own different companies. Kyle owned and managed Almost an Author, and Bethany owned and operated Serious Writer, which at the time was just a writing company that came alongside and consulted with writers and helped. And Almost an Author was kind of like a blog site for beginning writers to get their groove on. Cool. For lack of a better way to say it. And so they met and decided that they wanted to merge and they wanted to become something bigger and better. And so through that process, Kyle Young has been Kyle Young and I have been very close for many years. And so he's like, well, you should come on and be the creative director and help us with the website and the graphics and the conference and the vision. And so, via a lot of those things, I kind of got thrust into Serious Writer. And the thing that that Serious Writer, I think, embodies is we want writers to be able to hit their next level. Like, we want writers who are like, I can't do it. I'm never going to be published. I'm never going to do this, to have the tools and the resources and the gumption to make it happen. Because a lot of times what happens is, writers come into the writing world and they think that the most important thing for them is to be the best possible writer they can be. And they don't realize the things like platform building and connections and marketing and networking. And so that's really something that we really focus on as a company. We have a lot that is there to help hone your craft, but we also focus, it's probably 50-50 that we focus on platform building as well, because, being in the writing world, how much they talk about platform, like platform. That's all they talk about at conferences. So our vision is to be bold and be better. And we are tomorrow's next big names. And that's really what we want people to understand is, like, we're helping writers who really have who can have a voice reach their full potential.
Right. Because a lot of times it's not based on the talent or the quality of the writing, because if someone doesn't hear it, then they won't know. And so even if you're the best writer and your work never gets published or put out there, people won't know. And so it is super important to have that marketing side of things and the strategy behind how to get the attention on your work. And it does take a whole team, because it's hard for one creative person to do all of the business side of things and the creative side. It's usually one or the other that you're good at. And so, yeah, this is something that's very needed in the writing community. So I'm excited that it's going on and that it's available as a resource for writers. And it's fairly new, isn't it?
Yeah. And that, like, really, when I go to conferences, that's really one of the biggest things I get to talk about is platform building and how to utilize your voice in a way that people are actually going to hear it, because there's just so much noise out in the world, right? Like there's just so much noise, and there's so much that is out there. And so, what as Pubzu Creative, which Pubzu Creative is actually a subsidiary of Serious Writer. What we really believe is we want to do what only we can do so that people can do what only they can do.
Yes.
Because that's kind of our mantra is how can we help you with your website? How can we help you with your logos, with your branding? And how can we help you streamline what you're doing and figure it out at a different level than what maybe you've ever thought through? And so those are some things that we try to keep close to home. So
that's awesome. I'm learning the importance of working within your strengths and then leaving the other things up to people that are good at doing that. So, I mean, I've been managing my own website over the years, so I've kind of gotten into, that world of things, and I enjoy it now. But there are other things that are either completely new to me or not in my skill set or just not my purpose. And so I feel like outsourcing that to someone else who's good at it, does it every day, will just save you the time and headache, so you can focus on the art and the craft of like writing and doing what really lights you up and what you're good at.
Yep. I totally agree with that. That's why we're here.
Yeah. So as you guys are doing your research on, what writers are needing, what would you say are the biggest struggles as a songwriter?
Oh gosh. One is when you have something good, a lot of times people think that's enough. And that's the problem. Like, good is not good enough, and it rarely ever is. I mean, you look at Shark Tank. Like, watch the show Shark Tank. Like, and as cut down that show is, what they really do hone in on, and some, there's a lot of theatrics with it. But one thing that is really clear in the market, and this is true of any investor in any capacity, is good stuff still needs buy-in. And like, there's been some really great products on Shark Tank where the presentation was awful, right? Like, and they just didn't package it right. And it ends up working because it's a great product and somebody buys into it. But how much better could it have been had they done taken the time to really invest in their brand and their marketing and and so there's things with that. And so as a singer-songwriter, I think it's really important for anybody that's a singer-songwriter to realize, like, you can be really great at your craft, but if you don't have the right package to go with it, then it doesn't matter. Like, if you don't have a group of people that are helping hone your skills and hone your message that you're trying to share, that know the market and are out there for your best interest, then you're probably not going to find a lot of success.
Right. It's not really a Lone Ranger world. You can't do it all on your own, or you'll just burn yourself out. And so I think the important part of, what you just said was the community and the network of being with a group of people that can build you up and that can make you better. And you're growing together because they're in your corner, they're on your team. And so I think that's what's so needed, because we have the Lone Ranger mentality of like, oh, well, I'm the writer and I'm the everything. We wear all the hats, and it can really wear you out and make you discouraged when you don't see anything come from it.
Yeah. My biggest thing is I don't do things I'm not good at. Like, and that comes off to a lot of people as like, oh, I'm lazy. Like, but one thing, I work hard at what I'm good at, because the truth is, when I look at it, like I have a very specific set of beliefs that I've been created, and I've been created with very special gifts. And like, I don't want to waste those gifts by doing a lot of things that I'm really not gifted in. And a lot of times what happens is what we do is we rest on our gifts because we're good at them, and we don't work to make them excellent. We just are good at them, so we rest on them because we spend all of our time doing the stuff we're really not good at, right? And so when we're in a situation, I'll give you an example, like for singing, and like I'll go and lead worship, and I'll play parody songs. I do all this crazy stuff at conferences. What I could do is I could spend all my time working on things I'm really not good at, and then just be like, yeah, I'm going to wing it, right? Or what I could do is say, you know what, I'm really good at this. I'm going to not do this stuff, and I'm going to realize that if I do the best that I can at the stuff I'm really good at, I'm going to do it better than anyone else was ever designed to. And like, that's what I've realized is like, I can't focus on the things I'm not good at. And the other thing too is I think a lot of times we have trouble asking people for help, right? Oh, yeah. We have trouble saying like, oh, can you help me do this? Because we hate to do those tasks. We think that other people hate to do those tasks.
Right. But it might be something they're great at and really enjoy doing.
And it might be so like, so I'll just say as a pastor, like when I started off, like one thing that I was awful at, and I still am, is like the admin side, like doing the repetitive tasks over and over again. Like if you told me I had to print off stuff and like staple them and like do hundreds of copies of stuff, I'm like, literally my brain is about to melt inside my head. Like, I can't do this. Like, oh, it's terrible. It just drains me. But there are people who that is what they love to do. And what I would really struggle with is delegating those things to those people, because I hated to do it. So I just assumed everybody else felt the same way. Like, and so I would say like, oh, I don't want you to have to do this, but like, I really need help here. Like, but I don't want you to have to do this. And they're like, well, what are you talking about? They're like, I love doing this stuff. And so like, I think I just have been, I've learned over the years, like, even though I'm not good at these things and I dread doing them, there's somebody else who loves doing them and who is just waiting in the wings for you to ask them to do it. And you might need to be a little bold and say like, I'm going to go and ask for help. So.
Yeah, it's scary to do that, but it's so helpful. So, I mean, so rewarding to have people, I mean, even if it seems like a small task and you're like, well, this would take me an hour, but they could probably do it in 15 minutes, and actually enjoy it. Or it's something that people want to help you, but they might not know how. Mm-hmm. So yeah, when you're actually putting yourself out there and asking, you're giving them an opportunity to help you because they want to.
Yeah.
And you can have like a small group of people that are your supporters. It doesn't have to be a lot of people. Yeah. But even just a few can make a big difference.
That's so true. And one thing that I really try to like focus on, and I don't know if you do this too, like I really try and focus on leadership, learning leadership more and becoming a better leader. Yeah. Because in all aspects of life, and this is really, I believe this, like the quotient of how good a leader you are is going to determine how successful you are at what you're doing. Because like in everything that we're doing, we're asking people to buy into us. Right. Like, and that's a marketing thing. Like when you look at, I just was on Brew and Ink podcast like a week ago, and I was talking with Britt Mooney about it. He works for Phoenix Roasters, and it's this humongous coffee company. They're awesome, a Christian coffee company. They're really cool. And one thing that we were talking about is that marketing principles are basically leadership principles. Like if I showed you a leadership book and a marketing book, they're going to tell you the same things in a different way. And so like what I really like to focus on is how do I become a better leader? And those leadership principles trickle into my marketing and the way that I think about marketing, because at the end of the day, a leader and somebody who's marketing, they're really trying to accomplish the same thing. One, they're trying to amass a following. They're trying to get people to buy into what they're selling, right? Now for a leader, it's buying into who you are. So like what I'm selling is basically myself and my personality and my gift of God, the gift from God. Like, and so like those are the core principles. And at the end of the day, figuring out who's going to take it and run with it. Because in marketing, it's the same. You're not going to do, as a marketer, you're never going to be good at everything that you're doing in marketing. So who's the next person that you can start to look towards to take the baton and really run with it?
Right. And the people that you do see that are successful and doing things well are the people that have a team behind them, people with them that are cheering them on and doing those things that they're good at. And so everybody's kind of just working in their strengths and, like you said, becoming excellent at that one thing, just being really, really good at that and not trying to do it all.
And sometimes that scares people, right?
It is scary.
Like the more that I look at it kind of like pyramid, like the more people really worry because they feel like the less that they do well or the less that they focus on everything, that like the less effective they're going to be, right? Like, and so a lot of times, what do we try to, like, especially as musicians, like what do we try to do? We try to do everything. Like, well, I've got to be really good at this and this and this and this. Like, I mean, I learned how to play keyboard, I learned how to play bass, I learned how to play guitar, I learned how to play saxophone, I learned how to play the drums. Like, I learned how to do all this stuff. So I'm like, oh man, you know what I need to know how to do all this stuff. Like, I need to know so I can do everything. Like, right. Yeah. And I realized, like, what I really needed to focus on wasn't learning how to be better at all these instruments. It was really getting good at one. Like, because I would be more effective at getting good at one than being a jack of all trades. Like,
exactly.
And that's just the truth of it. Like, I can be good at a lot of things. I think a lot of people can empathize with the idea, like, I could be good at a lot of things, but do I want to be good at the cost of being great? You know what I mean? Like, do I want to be good at the cost of being the next level of what I really what the design of who I am is supposed to be? And so, you know, it's from good to great. Like, am I willing to let go of good to get to great? And I think that's a battle for everybody.
Yeah, I think time management comes into that. And like you said, learning leadership, because you're learning what's most important and learning how to communicate with people and how to delegate things. So there's so much that goes into it. I love studying leadership too. And just the marketing side of things is really fascinating to me. So I've been studying that for years. But I can see how it directly correlates with how I communicate with people and how I get the opportunities to be on stage, to be able to sing my songs. So if there wasn't that stuff in the background going on of learning how to communicate well with people and how to be a good leader, then my songs may never see the light of day, you know, even if they're the same songs and they're great. You know, it might be a really good message, but if nobody hears it, then it's not going to have the same impact. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. And I think, you know, you were talking about the importance of platform building. I would like for you to branch out on that and explain it a little more, because that is such a struggle for so many writers. So just really quickly, for somebody that's getting started and doesn't know, you know, what the next step is, where's a good place to get started with building your platform as a songwriter?
Okay, so as a songwriter specifically, you got to know who you are. Like, you got to know who you are. The biggest problem I see with people is there's a lack of self-awareness. Like people just, because, and here's why. I really think because of celebrity culture, right? Like, celebrity culture has driven us to this point where we want to be the people that we see on TV. We want to be the people that we see on MTV. We want to be the people that we see on stage. Like, that we're like, because it excites us. Like, and I don't care what anybody says. Like, why do you think people dream of being rock stars, right? Even if it's not their gifting, because there's an appeal to it, right? Like, if you told me, like, hey, if you told me tomorrow, like, you could be like Freddie Mercury, I'd be like, oh my gosh,
sign me up.
Sign me up. Where do I sign up? Like, or Elton John. Like, I want to be Elton John. Like, you know, there's this mentality that goes along with that, where it's like, that's the level I want to be at. But the problem is with that is there's only one Freddie Mercury, there's only one Elton John, and there's only one you. And the truth is, if you're not really doing, and I say this all the time to people, if you're not succeeding at what you're gifted at, then you're probably failing. Like, and if you're succeeding in all these areas that aren't your gifting, you're still failing. Like, in one aspect or another, if you're doing all this work and all this time and effort you're spending doing these things that you're really not supposed to be doing, then at the end of the day, you're going to be exhausted. you're going to be full of despair. You're going to be depressed. You're going to be sad. You're going to be beaten down, like, because you're fighting an uphill battle against the way that you were created to do things and the way that you were designed specifically to accomplish your goals. Like, one of the biggest lies I think we tell kids, that I never tell this to any of my kids in any of my ministries or my programs, like what really bothers me is when people say, you can do whatever you want to do as long as you work hard. Like, that's so disingenuous. Like, if 4'10" Timmy is not going to play in the NBA, no matter how much he tries, like, he's just not, because he has a 2-inch vertical and he's slow. Like, he doesn't have the skills or abilities to do that. But what Timmy is really, really good at is strategy. And Timmy could be a great strategist. But the problem is Timmy wants to play NBA, and somebody told him that if you work really, really hard at it, you'll be able to succeed. And the truth is, you can work really hard at things that you're not good at and get proficient at them. But you're never, ever going to be excellent at them because they're not what you're gifted at.
So once you know who you are, then that's the basis and the foundation for how you can move forward and really excel in your giftings.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's no question. There are 3 basic pillars to any marketing scheme, okay? They're who are you, what are you trying to accomplish, and how are you going to try and accomplish it? Like, and those are the 3 pillars of any marketing scheme. Who are you, what are you trying to accomplish, and how are you going to accomplish it? And when you figure out who you are, that's always the first step, because you can't try to accomplish anything until you have answer number 1 down pat. And I think a lot of times that's our biggest issue, is we just don't know who we are.
Yeah, because we don't want to narrow ourselves down and put our creativity in a box and say, I'm this one thing.
Right. And here's the other thing too. Let me say this. I think in marketing and branding, people who are not sensitive are the most successful. Like, you cannot be sensitive. Like, and I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but I don't care. Like, you can't be sensitive and be successful. You just can't. Like, you have to be able to take criticism. You have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, I didn't reach my full potential there. And you have to be able to have people in your life who you're willing to take direction from and who are willing to say to you, like, that, you really sucked it up there. Like, sorry, like you didn't do very good. Like, you know, like, I'll be honest, like, I remember the first time I got asked to lead for a crowd bigger than, you know, like 300 people. It was like 750 people. I'm like, yeah, like, this is gonna be so good. Like, I'm such a rock star. Like, I'm, you know, you would have thought I sold out, you know, Madison Square Garden. Like, that's how that was. And like, I led and I get done and I'm like, oh, that was so good. Like, I just was awesome. Like, oh, man. And then I had a buddy of mine who was like, it was average. And I'm like, it just like, it was like
okay.
all the wind out of my balloon. Just like, what in the world did you just say to me? Like, but that was the best thing that anybody could have ever done for me, was put me down a peg and say, hey, it was okay, but it could have been that much better if you would have done this. Mm-hmm. Or like, if you could get better at this, all these other things are going to fall into play. And like, that awareness right there changed the course of my life. Like, because it was just like, oh yeah, you're right. I could do this. Like, I could actually succeed here. So
yeah, and you have to be careful where you're taking advice from too. It needs to be from somebody that you trust. So when they do tell you something that's, you know, maybe negative or critical, even if it's to help, you know, mm-hmm. then you know that it's somebody you can trust who really cares about you and wants you to do well. It's not just someone being negative. Mm-hmm. It could be just somebody that doesn't like that style or didn't appreciate it or it didn't connect with them. But that doesn't mean it's wrong or that it's bad.
Exactly.
But if you have a mentor or somebody that you really look up to and they say something, it carries more weight.
And I'll give you a perfect example. So I'll tell you this, like, so I had a buddy who was in a band, they were excellent musically, but the lead singer his vocal style didn't fit the style of music they were playing at all. And it just didn't. And like, the guitarist, his vocal style was perfect for the group. He had good range. He was smoother. The guy who was leading was more like, you know, B.B. King, and like, it clashed with the music. It wasn't a good sound. And, a couple of musicians that I knew and we're all kind of friends, we all kind of told them like, hey, this doesn't fit. Like, you guys could be so good. Like, you could be the next level of good. And it's like, your riffs are good. You're musically good. Like, lyrically, these are fantastic. Because the guy who was singing wrote all the songs. And he was completely unable to separate and like completely unable to like take himself out of it for the benefit of like the group and like getting better. And he like, now none of them are playing music now. Like,
wow.
Not any, all 4 guys in that band, none of them are playing music. And it's all because one person was incapable of handling good, honest criticism that was for their benefit. You know, and it just, I mean, you see it all the time. How many bands are so stuck in wanting to do what they want to do, and they could be so much better, so much more popular, not just popular, but so much better musically, so much better structurally and lyrically, and they just won't accept criticism. And you just see them pedal out and become nothings. And, it's like, what could they have been had they listened to criticism? And part of it, once again, it goes back to the celebrity culture, because you everything is hyped up for these bands and these people. They're like, we defy the odds, and everybody told us we weren't going to make it, and this was terrible, and like all this stuff. And it's like, you're not the exception to the rule. You are the rule. like you are not the next Freddie Mercury. You're not the next Elton John. And even if you are, it's a different culture, and you have to play by the rules before you start breaking them. Like that, those are once in a generation talents. You know what I mean? Like, those are just people who defied the musical genre and took things in a direction nobody thought they could. Like, and it was singing, songwriting, writing, public speaking, word splitting. Like, sometimes we want to be different because like, we just want to be different. And this is my statement. Don't be the kid that got a Zoom just because everybody else got iPods. Like, don't be that kid, right? Like don't be the person that like is just like, oh, I'm going to be defiant and different just because I want to be. Like, there's a reason that, like, when what do authors get told all the time? Like, when they say, oh, there's nothing like this on the shelves, and they're like, there's a reason for that. Like, like, there's a reason there's nothing like this on the shelves. It's because it's not good. Like,
or it doesn't sell, or there's not a market,
or it doesn't sell, or people aren't like, that's just not where people are. So, it's just one of those things. Like, self-awareness goes so far, and being able to I don't think you can be fully self-aware on your own. I think you have to have people. Like, self-awareness comes from a group, not from one individual person.
I agree. I would love to hear like how you stay motivated, and where do you go for encouragement?
Well, okay, so I'll just let me get Christian on you for a second.
Get on your soapbox.
My motivation comes from my Creator. Like, I wake up every morning. My wife and I, we sit together, we talk together, we snuggle, we talk about our lives, like what we want to do, like, and like the busy mornings are the mornings I feel that I don't get a chance to do that. I feel least motivated. Like, the mornings where I have a chance to just take a deep breath, to center myself before the day starts, to pray, to figure out why I was created. Those are the days where I have the most success. I'm more productive. I'm more creative. I'm more tenacious. I'm more like there are just so many things that go with it. And for me, it starts there. But it does always go back to community. Like, I just have a group of people that I have a team of people in my life that I've strategically picked out to help aid me in my life to make me the most successful person I can be. And like, a lot of people, they think that's wrong somehow. Like, oh, well, is your success really yours? No, it's not. Like, it's not.
It takes a village.
Like, it's a group effort. Like,
yes.
If the team succeeds, we all succeed, right? And if I can build teams that help me be the best me, and I help other people be the best them, then we all succeed, right? And that's just the nature of it. And there's people who just can't get to that point, and they just have struggled. They struggle and struggle and struggle to build a team of people that gives them honest feedback, or to be motivated enough to build that team in the first place. Like, your team doesn't build itself.
Right.
Like, that's like nothing. If you're not intentional, you're destructive at best. And like, if your team is not going to just build themselves, you have to strategically put people in your life that are there to aid and embed your process. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So for the writers that are listening, that are wanting to get better at the craft, wanting to, build their platform and build their audience and everything, how would you encourage them just in the next step of what to do from where they're at?
Okay.
There's a lot of things you could do, but if you could give like one piece of advice for the next step, what would you say?
Okay, this is going to sound weird, but I'm just going to tell you. There's this pastor called Craig Rochelle, and he's the pastor of Life Church, and he does a podcast about leadership. And one thing that he said that I think always sticks out to me so much is he's talking about what he does in his process to get better. And what he said is he asks 21 questions. And he said, you know why I asked 21? Because it's one more than 20, right? Like, we don't ask ourselves a lot of hard questions when we're creating, when we're making, when we're doing things, because we don't want to have hard answers, right? So we don't ask hard questions. And so if we can ask ourselves hard questions in regards to what we're doing and how we're trying to accomplish it, we will always be better off. And so what I like to do is I like to ask 21 questions of any endeavor that I'm about to start. I like to ask those 21 questions about who am I doing this for? Why am I doing this? Is there profitability? And that doesn't just mean financial. Like, that means is this profiting me as a human being? Because there are so many more resources than just financial, right? Like, so many more, like time resources. What's this costing me? Like, that's a big one for me. What's this costing me? What am I saying yes to that is forcing me to say no to something else? Because every yes is a no somewhere else, right?
Exactly.
So, where am I taking my times and my talents? What am I doing to reach that next level? And where can I go from there? So
that's awesome insight. I really appreciate that. I think it's a great place to start. Like you said, knowing who you are is going to be the basis for everything else. So getting that nailed down and saying, I know who I am, and now I know what I need to do. So Thank you for sharing that today. And I think it's going to be really encouraging for the ones listening. And if you're listening and want to connect with Cody, I want to give out your website, which is codymorehead.com. That's how they can connect with you online and see what you're up to. I really appreciate you sharing part of your story today.
Well, thanks, Lydia. I appreciate you having me on.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast and share it with a fellow writer. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you in the next episode.